Great. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our very first career conversation that we're having today with Bedford County Public Schools and with Mr. Justin Siehien from Blue Ridge Optics located in Bedford, Virginia. So I'm going to turn it over to, and I will actually introduce myself. I'm Pam Bailey, and I'm with Bedford County. I work for the Office of Economic Development. I'm the Marketing and Business Development Coordinator, and part of my job is to work with the school systems to get students connected to local employers to let you guys know that there are some great and really interesting jobs and well-paying jobs right here in Bedford County. So you don't have to leave. You can always stay here and go to work. Because you guys already know, Ms. Trish Sawyer. She is the career coach at Jefferson Forest High School. We also have Taylor Flint, and she's the career coach at Stanton River and Liberty High School in Bedford. So thank you guys for the students who are here today. Again, if you want to be entered in a door prize, we do have some door prizes today, some gift cards to local businesses. And so feel free to put information in the chat. But at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Justin Siehien. He is the general manager of Blue Ridge Optics in Bedford, and he will do a much better job explaining what Blue Ridge Optics does than I will. So I would like to turn it over to Justin. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. So again, my name is Justin Siehien. I'm the general manager at Blue Ridge. And Blue Ridge, we're a laser optics company. So we manufacture all of the components, the optics and the coatings that go inside of any type of laser system, or really any type of technology that works with light. So we reflect, we transmit light, and we do it on a very, very small scale. We're considered one of the top companies in the industry in laser optics and operating right here in Bedford. We're about 40 employees now and a full-scale manufacturing shop. We hire people with PhDs, and we hire people directly out of high school as well with all types of experience. We're growing fast, and working with Pam and economic development and the guys here in Bedford, we're actively and always looking for new people. Even when we're not hiring, we're hiring. And hiring at the moment as well. Now, my job here is basically I oversee all aspects of the company, internally and externally. So I need to make sure that my employees have enough resources to do their jobs, that the company has enough resources and machines and people to be successful. I need to make sure that our customers are happy, that we have enough sales, that we're compliant, and we do a lot of government work. So there's a lot of compliance, and it's a moving target. So there's always new objectives and targets for us. So, we look for people that can help us identify what those are and be successful. Blue Ridge as a small business, we look for all different types of people, and we're always growing and creating new positions. We do a lot of research and development. So we got to make sure that not only are we successful now, but we got to anticipate what's coming in the future and make sure that we can develop those products as well. My role here is multifaceted and has to take all of these things on a day-to-day in consideration. Now, I guess the question is what qualifies me to do this job, or anybody for that matter to do a job like this? And, it comes down to experience. In my background and the type of classes that I took in high school and college and the jobs that I've worked, as well as, certain parts of our character that's needed, and work ethic, and following through with things and understanding what the job is and doing it. My background, I grew up in Florida. My parents were very young when I was born. They were still teenagers. So they had to work very, very hard. They didn't have a lot of material resources. I didn't have a lot of material resources as a kid. But both my parents ended up successful in what they did in their careers and really accomplishing the things that they wanted to do. And what they always did have, though, was a plan and a whole lot of follow through. And those were some of the messages that were sent to me when I was younger. So you don't have to get a good job or to go to a good school or accomplish things. You don't need to come from a family with a lot of money or a lot of resources, or you really do create your own opportunities with how hard you work. my first job that I had was probably my most valuable job still to this day. As far as my experience, I started off bagging groceries at a grocery store in Florida called Publix. And two things: I had great managers there, it taught me a lot, a great company, and really the two things that they instilled in me at the time, other than showing up and working hard, was how to make yourself valuable, and what you're doing, anything you're doing is at school and a job, and by making yourself valuable and how valuable you make yourself, you make yourself irreplaceable at the company that you're at, or with whatever you're doing. That company that I worked for, Publix, I was a bagger, but really the core focus of that company was the customer experience. It was to make customers happy. And I had management that explained that to me very young and early on in my career. And I learned that my job there was to make everybody happy that walked into that door while I was doing my other job of bagging groceries. And sooner or later, customers, they go to your managers and they tell them that you're doing a great job, and then more opportunities present themselves, and promotions come, and you move on. Now, at the time I was in high school, I didn't have a good career plan in place. Didn't know what I wanted to do, like a lot of people. So my plan was to focus on, making as great as I could in high school, and giving myself some opportunity in the future. Now I was lucky enough to get a partial scholarship and went to a 2-year college. Continued working and getting promoted through the structure at Publix, and eventually I did good enough that I got a scholarship and I was able to go to University of Florida. Now, I heed my warning on this. By the time I got the UF, I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was limited in the experiences or the people that I've been around. So I was in school, so I saw teachers. I saw what my dad did in his job and what my mom was doing. So, I thought maybe I could do those things too. And I took a lot of classes that were geared up towards that. But the point is that there's a lot of different jobs out there, a lot of career paths, and they're not going to find you. You really do have to get out there and look for it. And the earlier you find those career paths or those opportunities, the better off that you're going to be. If you find them later on, you can still make it work if you're dedicated and you want to follow through. But it is worth that initial investment, that initial time to figure out what you want to do. So as I started at UF, my dad was who had now 25 years in his industry as an engineer, worked his way up. So an engineer with no degree, which you really can't do anymore to a certain point. He decided he wanted to start his own business, and he said, well, he didn't have any business experience, but he had his engineering and coding experience. So he said, why don't you come up to Virginia after you graduate, and you can run the front end of the company and I'll run the engineering side of things. So it sounded like a good plan to me. And so I switched my load and focused a lot on mathematics classes, accounting and business, and then moved up to Virginia here about 13 years ago, and really ran the front end of the company. So I focused on accounting, marketing, manufacturing, management, customer service. So I was the third employee here, so I had to wear many hats, cover all these parts of the business. Then as we grew, each of these areas became too much for a single person. So we hired more people, and they became marketing specialists or manufacturing management specialists or customer service specialists. Now we've been doing this successfully for about 14 years as a company. And we have aggressive expansion plans in front of us right now, because we brought the right people in. So as I look back on my experience here in school, and really look at what helped me and to get where I'm at, or what helped the people that are around me and that we've hired here and that have helped our company be successful. There's really a few key things. In particular, it's the type of character that somebody has. And different aspects of that character, in particular with follow through and doing things right. It's a lot of times when you do something, it takes the same amount of time to do it the wrong way or do it the right way. If you're at a grocery store bagging groceries, you can, put the bread on the bottom, the cans on the top, and you get the job done. You give it to the customer, but they leave and they're not happy. They might not come back. They're never going to tell your manager you're doing a good job. You never climb up the ladder. And at the end of the day, it takes the same amount of time to put the cans on the bottom, and not to crush the groceries. And a lot of employers, I work with a lot of different companies, customers and suppliers, and everybody's looking for a hard worker, and they want somebody who's going to show up in time. Those are givens now. Those are just that's the baseline, working hard and showing up. But to succeed, you need that focus, and you need that element of doing things right, always doing things right. And the people who have done well around me and at our company here are the guys that understood that early on, that they're not here just to collect a paycheck, to check a box, but that they're here to follow through and do the best they can with everything they do. It could be washing dishes, right? It takes the same amount of time to wash dishes and do it the right way or the wrong way. And at the end of the day, nobody wants to eat dirty dishes off of dirty dishes, and nobody wants to, spend the time doing it again. Now, the second aspect of that is when you start something, finishing it, and I know with longer term goals that it's easier said than done at times. Some things take a long time. They're harder to finish. It's easy to lose focus. But really what I'm talking about when following through is with your own personal goals, whatever they are. It's having that plan and following through. So goals don't have to be big goals. They could be small goals. Anything that really helps you build your character. If it's, I want to work out every day for 20 minutes, or I want to, the one that I do now is I want to read 30 pages every day. And following through with that, making sure that you do that every day. And the more difficult the task, the more that it takes you out of your comfort zone, ultimately, the better off you're going to be. Because when you're used to accomplishing, setting goals for yourself, setting a plan for yourself and following through with it, that translates to all areas of your life, and especially in the workforce. And believe me, we here have gotten very good at identifying people who are successful at doing that. Those are the people who stick around and have very, very good careers. We've got guys who've started right out of high school here who are making very, very good money. Money equivalent to somebody that has a master's degree or PhD in some industries. And they did those three simple things. They made a plan, they set goals, they followed through with those goals, and the small things that they needed to do to get there, they did them right. They didn't do anything halfway or do it just to do it. They did it for the sake of doing it right. And for us, that is the type of character that we're looking for, and what's made people successful here. Pam and Trish, that's it in a nutshell. That was my experience here. What we've seen work for a lot of our guys, and what we've done to get here.
That's great. That's great. We've got a few questions in the chat, Justin. One of them is, what's it like on the job?
So a day-to-day here, and that's a great question. We've got a few new people that we just started here, and I can tell you their feedback right away as they compare to some of the other jobs they've worked, and they love it because it's a small company and each department is different. So depending on somebody's personality type or what they're good at, we could fit them into a department that they're going to be most successful in. So because you're coming to a very specialized industry here in a day-to-day, the first few months, it's a lot of learning. So it's a lot of watching what people do and taking notes. There's a lot of math involved here, a lot of math and science. So it's really understanding, what the numbers mean, what the certain language means. Like in any industry that you go into, you have your own language, you have your own terms. So it's those first few months are getting used to the terms and what the job is. From there, we have production schedules for our people. So we have certain jobs from customers and they have priorities. And the managers within each department passes those priorities onto the technicians. So they say, job A, B, or C needs to be done before the end of the week. You have a certain process that's written out for you and you complete that process under supervision. One process is we'll take pieces of glass or optics and we'll put them on large polishing machines and we'll spin them down and we'll polish them, maybe an hour or 2 or 3 hours. And then you pull the plate off and you measure it. And we have some advanced microscopes and measurement equipment here. And basically go through those processes to knock some of these jobs out and get them to our customers and manage a schedule. Now, what it takes is somebody who understands when things are going right and when things are going wrong. So a lot of paying attention, and like we said, doing it right. What we have here are a lot of processes. We tell you how to do the job. Now the question is, can somebody follow instructions well and actually do it?
Yeah, that's great. One of the follow-up questions, Blue Ridge Optics, people associate that with glasses, but that's not at all what your optics are. So that was a kind of relate when you're talking about processes and polishing things. We're not talking about eyeglasses.
No. So we're talking laser optics, and this laser optics fall into an industry called photonics. So photonics is basically an industry that works with light, and light can be used for a variety of purposes. For information technology, for manufacturing, for for aerospace and defense, medical purposes. So oftentimes our customers come to us and they design a large laser system, very complex laser systems, and they make engineering drawings for us or schematics of the individual optics or parts within those lasers, and they ask us to make them. So they give us this drawing and they say, we need to hit these requirements. Now you guys tell us how that's going to happen. So we get our engineering team in a room together and they design these different types of coatings or polishing processes. And at the end of the day, we have to test those in-house and send them back to our customer. And they need to be able to put them in their system. And we have to make them feel confident through our documentation and our internal testing that these parts are going to do what they need them to do. So again, laser optics, and we work a lot in the aerospace and defense industries. So much different than the eyeglass industry. Some of the processes are the same. I would say a lot of what we're doing now is research and development driven. So we're designing a lot of optics for future programs and defense programs and such.
All right. One of the questions that came in earlier was, do you think working in a job like that grocery store or department store helped create that better work ethic and values for your career? I think you answered that.
Yeah, you know what? It's one of the first things I learned there was the value of really the customer experience. I mean, when any business that you're in, whether you're business to business or business to consumer or selling things online, you need happy customers. And to have a happy customer, you need to give that customer what they want when they want it. And a lot of times that's not even enough. You have to exceed their expectations. So it's what can you do to exceed their expectations? So absolutely, working in a grocery store, you learn fast that what can I do to exceed their expectations? Their expectations are, don't crush my groceries, help me get out of the store on time. As you're there longer, you start learning, who is customer A, B, and C? What does customer A, B, and C like? How can I do things a little different for everybody? So now they only want to come and see you there, or that you make sure that your management there knows, or your employer knows that you're standing out. So those are lessons I think that for me anyway, I was able to take in the few different jobs that I worked after that and use today. I mean, it's a fundamental.
Great. And then along that lines, the characteristics that employers are looking for when they hire in your field.
You know what, it does depend on the type of job, but as far as the characteristics, again, when I'm interviewing somebody, or when one of my guys here is interviewing somebody, we're going to ask a lot of questions about, what you've accomplished, what you've done, what things that you're proud that you've completed. This is in addition to some of your, any kind of courses that you've taken in high school or college, or jobs that may have related experience, but we'd like to hear that you've done something that, and it doesn't have to be something big, it could be a job, something that something you did over the summertime, something that, some sort of goal that you set for yourself and you accomplished. That's big for us, because here we operate on goals. Like a lot of companies, it's all about the goals. They're financial goals, they're growth goals, those translate down into department goals, down into employee goals. At the end of the day, we don't like to hire what we call button pushers. We like our employees to be dynamic. I want to be able to train them for one position, but know they're going to be good at another position as well. So we can be flexible and nimble, and that makes us successful. So characteristics are, can you roll with the punches? Can you, and we try during the internet, the interview process to parse that out. But again, a lot of people here, you get a probationary period. So, if we see a lot of what we like, we'll typically bring you in for 30 to 60 days and on a probationary period is what we call it, before an actual hiring.
That's great. Yeah, setting goals and getting there is super. That's critical need for employees to have as well.
Doing everything you do in life, there's no reason not to.
Exactly. So we had some more specific questions related to exactly like an example of something you make, like for tracking technology for weaponry or cutting metal and materials, like specifically how are those lasers, how might your customers use them?
Sure. So some of the newer technologies in aerospace and defense is something called directed energy. So in the past, missile systems or defense systems, lasers were used to track. They might be part of another missile system where they can help track and guide, weapons to the target. There are new systems called directed energy. Now, what that is, what it sounds like, it's direct. So that's the laser actually hitting the target. So it's high energy lasers. So think Star Wars. So, or like tractor beams or Death Stars, not quite on that level. But yeah, basically laser beams that are being used in defense. So they're much more precise, safe. Imagine if you have an enemy target and it's in an area that might be surrounded by civilians. Dropping a bomb is not a good idea. You want to be very specific and targeted. And the idea is not to risk human life, our soldiers' lives. So not having them on the ground to have to do this is a big benefit. So that's a typical aerospace and defense. That's in a lot of those programs are in research and development now, and we're a big part of that, and we'll be a big part of that. In the medical aspect, we use lasers that are used in non-invasive surgeries. So by using different wavelengths, we can target different tissue and thicknesses of tissue without having to go in surgically and cut people open. We can irradiate anomalies on the skin or in deep tissue with different lasers. So that's a great, and then you see in LiDAR technology or in car tracking technology, such as these self-driving Teslas, self-driving cars. This technology is taking off like wildfire now. And there's two competing systems, cameras and lasers. Lasers, we believe, is going to be the future of this. Again, more precise and more information capacity. So again, then you go to the grocery store. The scanners that you're scanning your groceries with on the barcodes are all small laser systems that we do commercial parts for. Lasers are used everywhere now. They're used in communication, aerospace, defense, medical, and a variety of areas.
That's great. Really helps understand the scope of what you do. So to honor our time, I'm just going to read off the last couple questions and then we'll end. And if somebody wants to stick on after the recording, they can, if you have time, Justin. So the question is, what do you like most or least about your career? And what's the hardest thing about your job?
What I like most about, you know what, this is my, this has become my dream job in here. A lot of it is like any job that you start and you invest yourself heavily into it, you want to see it successful. And I'm in a position here where as much as that I and my people want to put into this company and what we do, we control our own fate. We can be as successful as we want to be. We can set our own target and meet that target, and we can go beyond that, or we can, if we wanted to, we can sit put and be the company that we are now. I think that's absolutely my favorite part. It's always having a place to go. Part of that is we're in an industry that is growing, that is, going to be a big part of the future. And it's nice knowing that we're solving these big problems by making these small optics and changing these production processes. So that absolutely is my favorite part about about working here. Now, the second part was that challenges here.
The hardest thing about your job.
The hardest thing, there's a lot of difficult things, being honest. But it's for us right now, we have, as a small business, we do have limited resources. And we have a lot of opportunity. So as I mentioned before, all these different industries and all these different types of lasers that we can manufacture, now it's picking the parts that or the systems or the customers that are going to help us be most successful. Do we put 80% of our business into this directed energy and 20% in medical, or do we vice versa? So it's really understanding the market, where the market's going, and it's very dynamic. The technology is changing quickly. So for us, knowing where to put our resources is definitely the biggest challenge.
That's great. That's great. So what I thought now is I will end the recording, and that way Taylor can go ahead and do the drawing. And then if a student has another question, if you have time, Justin, we'd really appreciate that. But these guys have asked some tremendous questions. So I just really am really tickled that they've been able to do that. So let me hit end.